Now we will look at the regions of the vertebral column. And I think the first important thing to understand about the vertebral column is the curvature of the column. There is a normal curvature that you can see from the lateral aspect. In other words, if you're looking at it from the front or the back, anterior, posterior view, the column should be straight. But if you look at it from the side, as you can see in this figure, it doesn't look straight. It has a curve to it. And there is what is called a primary curve and a secondary curve. The primary curve is going to be the curve that first appears in development in the fetus. And it is a curve that is concave from the anterior aspect. And in the mature vertebral column, there are two primary curves that are still present. One is located in the chest region, the thoracic region of the vertebral column, and the other is located in the hip region or the sacrococcygeal region, pretty much in the sacrum. So these are your primary curves. But in addition to these curves, you have what are called secondary curves, and these curves are convex from the anterior point of view. And you find two of these secondary curves, one in the cervical region, the neck region, and another in the lower back region, the lumbar region. Conveniently, the curves are going to occur primarily in the four different regions, the four primary regions of the vertebral column. So next we're going to take a look at these four regions. So here is a nice figure which will isolate the four main regions of the vertebral column. We have first, in the neck region, or the cervical region, we have 7 vertebrae, 7 cervical vertebrae. We're going to look at these in greater detail in a future video, but one consistent thing you'll always see is that the number of these will always be 7. This is something that's very consistent. Not only do you see this being consistent in humans, but you also see this consistent in mammals. If you look at just about every mammal, including large mammals like a whale, or you look at a giraffe, or you look at a mole, and you look at the number of cervical vertebrae, you'll always see 7. So this is a very consistent number. In the thoracic region, we're going to see 12, usually, although there's a possibility that this number may vary. But fairly consistently, you'll find 12 thoracic vertebrae in humans. And a thoracic vertebrae is going to be defined by its association with ribs. So essentially, it's going to contribute to what is called the rib cage, or the thorax. And we'll see when we look at a future video how we can identify these thoracic vertebrae by their association with the ribs. Then in the lower back, we'll find 5 lumbar vertebrae. Again, this is a region that is pretty consistent, but you can see some abnormalities, or you can see this number vary in some rare cases. But generally speaking, you'll find 5 lumbar vertebrae. And we'll see that they have a characteristic that is associated with the fact that they're bearing a greater weight, and they're lower in the column, and there's a greater amount of weight bearing on them. And also the fact that the spinal cord is at this point getting very small and disappearing. So these are two things that are going to be reflected in the way these lumbar vertebrae appear. Then finally, we have 5 vertebrae which essentially fuse with one another and form the sacrum. And we'll look at the sacrum again in a separate video in greater detail. At the very end, we have 3 to 5 vertebrae, very small vertebrae, that fuse and form what is called the tailbone commonly, or the coccyx. And this represents a remnant of what would have been a tail. So, for example, if you look at a cat or a dog, you'll see that they will have a number of coccygeal vertebrae or tail vertebrae. This ends our video. As always, there is a link to a quiz in the description below. And I didn't use too many figures in this video, and the one I did use is in the public domain, but here it is anyway. Finally, my daughter was a little bit upset with my last video, which showed Apollo eating an insect or some fly, and she contributed this video of Apollo in his younger days, doing what he does best, chasing his tail and licking himself. And if that went by too quickly, here it is in slow motion.